On your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, after a pair of wins against a couple of very bad teams, the Raptors have basically locked up a play-in spot. Yay! The 8th seed race now comes into focus. The Hawks, the Bulls, the Raptors, all vying for that all-important right to go on the road for one play-in game against the 7th seed. We will break down the mess. We will also talk about what we learned from the Raptors, if anything, over the course of this weekend. We'll do it with our pal Vivek Jacob at Raptors.com. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1368 of Locked On Raptors for Monday, March the 27th. I'm your host, Sean Woodley. We're covering the Toronto Raptors now for 9 seasons on various platforms. You can find all of my work over on Twitter at WoodleySean. You can go and follow the new Locked On Raptors Instagram page. Just search Locked On Raptors. You'll find it right there. Get little clips, bonus content, that type of stuff, and mailbag prompts, all the goods you get from old IG as I've taken the plunge 10 years too late. Also, we are over on YouTube. Please go subscribe there or wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. It's free to do, and it helps support the show, stroke my ego, all that good stuff. Thank you in advance for doing that. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com. Promo code Locked On. All right, on today's show, a couple of pretty ho-hum wins against a couple of really bad teams over the weekend. They took care of business. That's good. They take down the Pistons 118-97. They take down the Wizards in pretty commanding fashion, minus a third quarter hiccup on Sunday as well, 114-104. And we sit here on Monday. The Raptors are 37-38, tied with the Atlanta Hawks in the win and loss department. They don't have the tiebreaker against the Hawks. They are tied in the loss column with the Bulls, who are one win behind. They have the tiebreaker over the Bulls, so that's nice. Vivek Jacob, Raptors.com is here. We're going to dive into the play-in madness before we take a look at the games over the weekend, which, let's be honest, did we learn a whole lot? Probably not, but we'll try to sift through it the best we can. The play-in derby is where it's at, though. Big V, are you excited? The race for the 8th seed is on, baby. Can you feel the excitement and the passion flowing through the city?
Hey, we started the season with hopes of getting home court in the playoffs, and now we're going in with hopes of getting home court in the play-in.
Look, man, I can't help it. I'm a sucker for games that have some meaning to them, and so I'm sitting here scoreboard watching. I'm flipping over to the Hawks-Grizzlies game after the Raptors end up finishing off business against the Wizards. I'm totally play-in pilled. I have a sickness. Whatever. It's fine. Let's dig into some numbers, shall we? Of the 3 teams, Hawks, Bulls, Raptors, again, all tied at 38 losses. Per Tankathon, which I guess is the best we have for determining strength of schedule. The Raptors have the second toughest schedule remaining. They play 2 of their 5 games against the tanktastic Hornets, who took down the very bad Mavericks twice over the weekend, which is hilarious, but they're still the Hornets. They're not very good. The Raptors have handled them this season. The Atlanta Hawks have the 3rd toughest remaining schedule. They also kind of stink. I have some thoughts on their game last night against the Grizzlies, which I saw 3 minutes of, and was enough to tell me this team ain't serious. They are playing all against teams with something to play for, except for a game against Washington, who's basically out of it now after last night. And then the Bulls come in playing the best basketball. They're 10-5 in the last 15. They've got a pretty decent-looking starting 5 now with Patrick Beverley, and they have the 19th toughest schedule remaining. But they have an extra win to make up. They play 6 teams with something to play for. They have a couple of stinkers in there as well. But I think you have to be looking at, do the teams on the schedule have something to play for? That's more telling to me than just the straight win-loss strength of schedule situation, as is usually the case in late March and April in the NBA. I guess, give me your read on this, Big V. We'll dig into some of the arguments for and against, but just off the top of your head, who right now do you think you would pick if you had to lay some of your hard-earned money down on one of these teams to get the 8th seed, which again, there's a lot of advantages to it. Very valuable. 1 game as opposed to 2 that you got to win. What's your sort of read right now? Hawks, Bulls, Raptors. Who you got for 8th, baby?
Well, I mean, the Raptors have this game coming up against the Heat, which is a massive one, and then they go on the road. So
yeah,
don't feel great about that. But at the same time, when you look at the Hawks schedule, they've got the Cavs, the Nets. The Mavs, that's a dicey situation.
Oh, the Trae Young Luka Doncic Bowl between the two most depressing teams in the NBA. Woo,
Yeah.
baby, that draft has taken some turns.
Yeah.
As the Kings sit perched atop in the very comfortable higher tier of the Western Conference as well. Mwah, we love it.
And then to finish the season, they might have a big say in the 2 seed because they play Philly and Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we know the Raptors are going to have a pretty big say in that because they play Boston twice. Right?
Yep, and Philly once. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think schedule-wise, it probably nets out even. And so I will lean towards things just remaining the way they are. And the Raptors will have home court in a game for 9 and 10 against DeMar DeRozan and the Chicago Bulls.
Oh, that is wrought with all sorts of bad downsides. Just theoretically thinking about it, I think. Look, I think of these teams, the Raptors are the best one in terms of the quality of their best players. Look, their starting 5 has been undeniably good. I don't know what to say. They've been very good. And, Fred VanVleet's playing very good basketball right now. OG Anunoby's playing very good basketball right now. Jakob Poeltl's being Jakob Poeltl. Pascal's even had a bit of a bounce back after some down spells. Not a great game yesterday, but whatever. I look, and it's not like I'm singing the praises of the Raptors to say they might be the best of these 3 teams, which are all about 500. They're all extremely mid. They're just kind of mid in different ways. And I think the Raptors' midness is maybe a little bit more reliable, whereas the Hawks kind of oscillate from, wow, they look amazing, to, wow, this is the most embarrassing team I've ever seen. And the Bulls can't score worth a damn, even though their defense has been locked in and very good. I just think I kind of trust the Raptors most of these 3 teams. Not that there's a lot of trust to be spread around the table, as it were. As far as like the probabilities, Basketball Reference has the Bulls as the inside track for the 8th seed. And honestly, even though I think the Raptors are probably better on the whole than the Bulls, I think I might pick the Bulls right now to end up in that 8th seed because they're playing the best as of late. And their schedule is easier. Again, I think the easiness of the schedule is kind of it doesn't really tell the whole story just on the pure win percentage numbers and all that because of the various circumstances all these teams find themselves in. But the Bulls are playing better basketball right now. They also have a game against the Hawks. That's going to be a massive one coming up between those 2 teams between now and the end of the season that should determine quite a bit. But yeah, Basketball Reference has them as a 35.8% favorite to get that 8th seed. The Raptors are second at a 33.3. The Hawks are 23.2. I think the Hawks are going to be the 10 seed. The Hawks stink. I turned over to that game last night against the Grizzlies. Close game, crunch time. And over the course of 2 minutes, there was one situation in a semi-transition opportunity where Xavier Tillman was allowed to just go and throw down a dunk while 2 guys on the Hawks got back. Pretty bad. And then they were playing keep away, the Grizzlies were with the Hawks, very successfully for like 14 seconds when the Hawks should have fouled instantly but could not try hard enough to chase down the ball and lay a foul on a guy to potentially give themselves more time to pull themselves back into that game. The Hawks are not serious. I don't think they're a team to be worried about at all, even in this 3-team mass of teams that are all the same level of bad. They, to me, feel like the flimsiest of the bunch. So I'll go Bulls 8, Raptors 9, Hawks 10. Raptors get the Hawks in a home game in the play-in and probably win it because, again, the Hawks stink. And look, throwing stones from a glass house here from the 38-win team, be like, you stink! This is the team that has the exact same record. But again, I think the Raptors are a more reliable level of mid versus the Hawks, who have some real peaks and valleys, and their valleys are really, really nasty looking.
Yeah, you're on your own there associating the word reliable with the Raptors this season.
I feel like a Raptors game is pretty easy to predict at this point as far as like the ups and downs of how it's going to go. I don't know. Again,
I mean, you say those things about the Hawks, but also like they lost by 4 to the Grizzlies.
They did lose by 4 to the Grizzlies.
That is not like...
Yes, that's true. I did not watch the first 45 minutes of that game, but the last 3 minutes. And anytime I watch the Hawks this season, I'm just like, really? This team is doing this? Really? I don't know. That to me, they're the worst of these three. Again, I think the Bulls, they're playing the best basketball right now. They have a defense that's kicking ass, so I'll probably skew them for the 8th seed. But it's
so the Bulls, like, they got to play the Clippers, the Lakers, the Grizzlies. You mentioned that Hawks game. They got the Bucks on the road against Dallas. So it's not the easiest schedule.
It's not. Like, the strength of schedule thing is, I think, all season long, it's felt like a bit of a misrepresentative stat, all told, just because every team stinks. Like, and I guess this is like a bigger question we could maybe get into, is like, how bad are the Raptors actually, considering the scope of the league? Everyone else is in the same boat. Like, the Mavericks are in 11th spot right now. Everyone is flailing about around 500. There's like 13 teams within 4 games of 500. Is it actually that dire for the Raptors, or are we just kind of stewing in our own juices a little bit here? That's maybe a question for another day. But
like, part of why I don't have a lot of confidence in the Raptors to finish up this stretch is because of, the fact that they are going on the road. And again, after this Heat game, they are on the road until the final home game of the season, which is home against the Bucks. And so you look at the Raptors, 25-14 at home, 12-24 on the road, right? And you kind of look at the other teams, they've kind of got it, pretty even in terms of home and away games to finish up the season. So that's where, based on what the Raptors have been, I don't have a lot of confidence on the road.
Yeah, that's it's a fair point, man. This what a maddening basketball team.
And as a whole, that's the way the league has been, right? Outside of a few teams, everyone is bad on the road. And that to me is the biggest sort of factor when looking at these final games and how teams are going to finish up.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the bigger factor is like the level of how much each team in each game cares about winning it. Like, the Bucks game at the end of the season is probably going to be a nothing game. The Bucks are probably going to rest everybody, right? And that bodes for the Raptors. And I would also say it's very possible that by the time even the second Celtics game comes around, we know the fate of the 2 and 3 seeds. Right now, Boston is 2 games in the loss column behind the Bucks and 2 games up in the loss column on the Sixers. If that holds, you get to that final week, and those games against Boston might mean very little as well, depending on the results of the next week or so. So it could break where the Raptors play exactly 2 teams for the rest of the season that care about winning, and that would be, I guess, helpful, but we shall see. We're going to come back on the other side, dig into our big takeaways from the weekend. You may have noticed we have kind of danced around talking about the Pistons and Wizards games, because those games were the epitome of, all right, cool. They happened, I guess. We will get into that, pull away any takeaways we might be able to glean from the weekend that was, coming up next. But first, got to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks, who have made daily fantasy sports fun, easy, and super accessible. You might be like me, where you just hate the season-long grind of daily fantasy sports. I just can't do it anymore. I don't have the attention span. I don't care to set my lineup when injuries befall my team in the middle of the week. It's just not something I'm into. But with Prize Picks, you don't got to worry about that, because every single day you got a fresh entry you can put in. All you got to do is pick 2 to 6 players on a given entry and predict whether they will score more or less than the given stat they're projected for. For example, Pascal Siakam, 22.5 points. You could say more or less. If you get that right, that's a notch in your belt on your entry. If you get all 6 of your picks correct, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. That is awesome. Prize Picks also offers projections on any sport you want to watch, whether it's the NBA, NFL, college basketball on the men's and women's sides, the WNBA is coming up, esports, NASCAR, tennis, cricket, all of it's there. Go and check it out. I saw, you can't see Vivek right now as I'm doing this read, but when I mentioned cricket, his eyes got big. I saw him in the back of the studio. That's because cricket's there as well. All the sports are, again, safe and fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states in Canada as well. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will match that. That's amazing. That's a wonderful deal. Go right now. Don't forget to use the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 with Prize Picks. All right, we continue on here with Big V Monday. It's our rite of passage here on the podcast as we dig into weekend takeaways. We're at the point of the season, Big V, where there's not a whole lot left to learn. Was there anything to be gleaned for you from this weekend of the Raptors taking care of business against a couple of depleted and not very good basketball teams?
Well, number one, it was good to see OG bounce back from that one-off night. He's had two very good games. Obviously, had that incredible first quarter last night, and so I think the thing that really impresses me is his mid-range jumper, and I think the balance with which he's rising up on them is really, really good. And there's also times where it's not coming off a move. Like, it's just catching and shooting in the mid range, and I'm like, that's where he's at his best. So I think that's been a real positive. I thought watching Boucher against the Pistons was really interesting because it was like they had two bigs for the majority of the night, and I thought that was something that played to his strengths, where he kind of just gets to be helter-skelter, and they're too big and slow to keep up with him. and it works. And so I thought that was interesting. Those are probably a couple of the bigger takeaways. Obviously, Pascal's been kind of up and down, and has phased in and out, and his defense hasn't really been there. So I think that is something you look at and say, not great, not ideal, not the way you want to finish up the season. Obviously, overall, he's doing enough to get the numbers, but maybe process-wise, it's not looking the best.
Yeah, I continue to think Pascal just looks like he's running on empty. The legs are dragging. The sort of the legs aren't there on a lot of the jumpers. Although it should be noted, he's shooting 35.5% from three on north of 4 attempts a game since the Jakob Poeltl trade. That's important. That's valuable. That's good to see. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, his defense, I think, has slipped. I think he just looks pretty exhausted, and that stinks. But that's the toll of playing 42 minutes a night for the first 2/3 of the season, I suppose, and having to carry the day for a team that didn't have a whole lot else going on. For me, I think I'm kind of overlearning things about this team. I believe in the starting five. I think that's going to be a pretty good group. I think they, plus 11.5 net rating and over 200 minutes now. Offense would be best in the NBA. Defense would be best in the NBA. It's a good-looking lineup. I think that's something to build upon both for the rest of this season and going into next year if you bring your guys back. I think the back end of the roster is where I have a lot of questions. I feel like when Will Barton goes out with an injury, you shouldn't be like, but like, they're pretty thin, man. And Precious Achiuwa obviously comes back from injury. That's nice to see, but he plays 6 minutes, and I think clearly doesn't have the full trust right now of the coaching staff, and he probably shouldn't. He was good in that Bucks game, but otherwise he's been pretty rough for a while now, ever since the trade. And so, like, for me, the back end of this roster is just not good enough, and I don't think that's going to change by the end of the season. I think that's going to be the biggest thing to look at in the offseason if the front office does in fact believe in this core, is filling out roster spots 7 through 13 more effectively. But hey, they shout out to the bench dudes. They helped close that game out against the Wizards after the starters pissed away the third quarter. So maybe there's progress to be had there. I'm not sure. I guess, what's your overall feeling of, like, I've been kind of looking at this season as two parts, right? Like the pre-Yak Raptors and the post-Yak Raptors. Pre-Yak, obviously, they were very uninspiring. They were 26-30, I think. They had a 6-game losing streak baked in there. Everyone was losing their minds, justifiably so. It was not a good basketball team. Since then, 11-8 with Jakob Poeltl, 17th in offense, 9th in defense, plus 1.9 net rating. Obviously buoyed by a couple of these games against bad teams, but that's the NBA. There's a lot of teams out there with not a lot of good players who are not playing or all that stuff. Like, everyone gets these games against teams to balloon their numbers. Do you feel markedly different about what the team is now versus what it was before? Do you feel like the Raptors are justified in what they did at the deadline, seeing what they've been since? Like, I guess we're now kind of at the point where we've learned enough about what they look like with Yak that we can start to draw some conclusions about, was it the right move, and did the Raptors maybe misplay this whole thing, or maybe that they've set themselves up for, maybe they've gotten their off season taken care of early and are setting themselves up for next season pretty decently. Where are you at with the whole Yak experience and where things sit now that we've got, nearly 20 games of sample of what this looks like?
The Yak experience has been good, no doubt. I think he's been huge in addressing the weaknesses of this team. I think you look at the defense, there's less sort of just complete, Moses parting the Red Sea type moments. And I think that's been healthy. I think obviously what he offers Fred in the pick and roll, that has been super important. He shored up the rebounding. I think he's made them a better offensive rebounding team, not just in terms of getting more offensive rebounds. It's also like, hey, we don't have to send like 3 guys to the glass to get the offensive board anymore, because Yak will just get it. So theoretically, that offers you the opportunity to play better transition defense. Now, that hasn't materialized, but I do think that it does offer up that possibility. I'm still skeptical of the long-term fit. The starting lineup numbers are very good, but I think in terms of finding, the right pairings to go with the bench to prop up those units, I think the way the team is set up, there's just not enough shooting to do that.
Sure.
And so somehow that needs to be addressed. In terms of the numbers, yeah, there's stuff to read into with, like, getting Scotty to play with OG versus Pascal. The Scotty Pascal minutes. I mean, I was just pulling it up. Let me see if I can find it. Scotty and Pascal on the court, and this is with Fred and OG off the court. 442 possessions on the season. They are a -5 net rating.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been healthy. Scotty and OG on the court, Pascal and Fred off the court, 396 possessions. So far, they're a +2.
Yep.
So at least in comparison to that Pascal Scotty unit, that's a +7 almost. So I think that's something that you got to look at. And again, right, I think it fits that theoretical idea of like, oh, okay, you have Scotty plus a guy that can floor space and attack a closeout, whereas Pascal, they want to operate in kind of similar areas, and you don't necessarily get the spacing. So all those things factor in terms of how you have to evaluate the off season, and who you're kind of building around going forward, and what type of ceiling you're trying to achieve as well for the 2023-24 season.
Yeah, I mean, how much of that do you think boils down to like an inherent flaw in the Scotty Pascal duo? Because like you play those guys with the right players, and I feel like those lineups are usually pretty damn good, and they do complement each other well. It's when you play them with Precious Achiuwa and Chris Boucher and Malachi Flynn or Christian Koloko, and it gets there's not nearly enough shooting punch, and you don't really get the advantages of what a Pascal Scotty two-headed monster can give you if you actually have supporting players around them to be effective. So do you think it's more of an issue with those two? Or do you think it's more of sort of what I was talking about, the back end of the roster being kind of ass and the difficulty in creating these pairings, especially when a Gary Trent Jr. is out? And look, things shouldn't fall apart when Gary Trent Jr. is out of the lineup necessarily, but they kind of do offensively because he is such a huge valve of release for this team. Is it a Scotty Pascal thing, or do you think it's they don't have enough good players to pair with them type of situation?
I probably lean towards it being more of a Scotty Pascal thing. Again, like, I think they can play together and be very effective in terms of getting their games off, but I don't see that being married to impact basketball in terms of what the score looks like. And so I think that's where my concern is. Like, you could put them on the court and both could finish with 20 and 10 and 5 or whatever you want to call it. And I don't think the results on the court as a whole, as a 5-man unit, look great. So I think that's where my concern is. The shooting, like, is just too important in the league now. And so I think, again, the extent to which Gary is important is too high, right? Like, even like when we talk about Will Barton's like theoretical spacing, which has not panned out, right? All of those things, it's like, man, the Raptors just need shooting so badly. And when you look at their 5-man unit, that starting lineup is very, very good. I just think in terms of the ways you can build out your lineups after that, because there's only 2 shooters in that starting lineup, it makes it difficult, right? Like, it's just Fred and OG in terms of legit volume knockdown shooters.
So yeah, I hear what you're saying. I guess I skew more to, I think it's they don't have enough players to pair with those guys. So it's like, I mean, we're a year removed from Scottie and Pascal being the 2 best players on a team that won every game down the stretch and put a little spook into the Sixers as well. You know, it sucks that they lost the early games in that series due to a whole cavalcade of factors, but like, they were unquestionably very good, and those 2 guys were the 2 best players on the team down the stretch last year. So I think it can work if you have those 2. I don't see there being some gross overlap in their abilities or anything like that. And I think if Pascal can carry the volume and accuracy he's had since the trade, then I do think it's viable. He's 36% on 4 attempts a game. Like, that is perfectly fine.
Yeah, so I think personally for me, like, that run had so much to do with how good the defense was. Like, they were legitimately a top 5 defense. And I think we've seen this season that type of defense get exposed. And I think there was a surprise element to that, playing that style of basketball, that we kind of took for granted, right? Coming into the season. Like, we thought, okay, they figured out the defense. This is who they are going to be. And this season we've seen that be exposed, right? And so I think that to your point about building out the roster better and having a better bench, I 100% agree that the Raptors need a better bench. I also don't see how, if you commit the type of money it's going to take to those 5-6 guys, if you include Gary in that mix, how you build out that bench.
Yeah, that's fair. It's things can get uncomfortable this summer, man. I talked about it on Friday, like the possibility of a Pascal deal. I still would bet against it. I think it's probably premature in whatever their sort of building timeline is here, but it could come. It could be what they do. It would bum me out, but I think it's certainly something that's on the table as like a thing that could happen this summer, no doubt. I still think the Pascal Scottie duo can be just fine, and trading away good players for the sake of trading away good players, not so smart. But we can leave that for now. We will have that conversation plenty going into the offseason. We're going to come back on the other side, get to the good, the bad, and the to round out this show. We'll run through some good stuff, some bad stuff, some interesting stuff from the weekend that was. We'll get to that in a sec, but first, got to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar, who make the best tasting protein bars in the game. And right now, the Built March Madness bracket is here. We know you got a favorite bar or puff, and now it's your time to make it count. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com to vote for your favorites. You know, I'm going to be voting for that peanut butter brownie all the way through. I'm actually not sure if it's still alive. I don't have the bracket in front of me. It should be alive because it's fantastic. If not, some Florida Atlantic level upset has taken place. Either way, you can go over right now and vote for the bar that you want to win. Then you can go and win some bars as a result. When you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, but one Locked On fan will get a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. That is awesome. You got to go try Built. They're the best tasting protein bars in the game. They make you feel like you're being indulgent when in fact you're fueling your body with the good stuff. Run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. And again, you can vote in every day in March, so hop on in and support your pick. All right, let's get into it now. The good, the bad, and the to round out your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors. I'm going to go with my good first because you kind of spoiled it earlier. It's OG Anunoby's offensive outburst, baby. The mid-range game. I got some numbers for you. Since the Jakob Poeltl trade, which again is the official start of the new season to me, numbers since the trade. He is 91st percentile in the NBA in effective field goal percentage. He is 81%, 100th percentile from the long mid-range. 81%. That is bananas. He is 52% on all mid-rangers. That's 81st percentile. 86th percentile on three-pointers made. And he's doing all this, Big V, on a 15.9% usage rate since the trade. The usage has gone down, but it's gotten a hell of a lot more effective. It's peak dream OG Anunoby for me. As you mentioned, the point you made about how a lot of his mid-rangers are coming just kind of within the flow, catch and shoot mid-ranger stuff. He's not sort of barreling his head down and driving into these shots and having to pull up all the time. That, to me, feels like the difference. They've cut out the fat. They've cut out the, all right, OG, just go ISO this guy possessions. It really feels like they just kind of streamlined where his looks are coming from, and it's been bloody effective. He is averaging 1.31 points per shot attempt, 88th percentile in the league since the Jakob Poeltl trade. He's just been a devastatingly efficient play finisher, which is what this Raptors team needs. He's been awesome. That is my good. Big V, what was your good from the weekend?
I am gonna go with the same as you.
Ooh, some unoriginal ideas here, huh? Plagiarism?
Yeah.
No, there just wasn't a whole lot else to pull from the weekend. It was a very nondescript weekend of games, I understand.
Yeah, and we probably don't get to talk about OG as often as we should. So yeah, let's just ride the OG train because March has been all about OG, and I think what he's doing this month is absolutely sensational. When you look at the numbers, I think he's pretty much looking like one of the. I mean, I think you can say he's firmly the best 3-and-D guy now that Michael Bridges taken himself out of that category by just being a damn all-star level player. So. I think OG has that category all to himself. Yeah, March, 18.7 points. He's shooting 56% from the field, 48% from three, on 6.3 attempts per game. The steals are at 1.8. Need that to be a bit higher just to make sure he wraps up that steals title and stays in that all defensive first team conversation. I think he's been good enough to make the first team. And so hopefully we see that happen.
For sure. Let's pick up on the thing we talked about before the break, the whole Scotty Pascal duo. Is it, an inherently flawed situation there? How much of your potential, I don't want to say desire, because I don't think anyone wants to see Pascal get dealt, but your potential okayness with the idea of maybe a Pascal move in the summer, how much of that is informed by what OG's doing offensively? Do you think he's doing enough offensively to justify potentially moving on your all-NBA player in the interest of, I don't know, fit or more harmony on the floor? Does OG's offensive push of late change your thinking in that sort of regard at all?
I would say I'm not only just looking at it from a Pascal angle. I'm
sorry, I shouldn't have painted it such a black and white situation. Clearly, they're trading Scottie Barnes for a star. That's what's going down here.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, all options are open.
Sure.
I think the biggest certainty to come back is Jakob Poeltl because of the what you gave up in the trade. And the fact that you acquired his bird rights, like you're doing those things to bring him back. So
sure.
I think I would put him as certainty number one to be back. I think with regards to OG's offense feeling, making me feel better about other things. I don't know if it's so much that. I think I'd probably say it's more so what he offers defensively, what he where he fits in age wise. If you do is like say if you were to focus on like a Scotty built team, like OG still 25, like you would put him next to that, and it fits just fine, right? So I think that's where I probably look at it and say, yeah, the fit is there. I think to really believe in OG's offense, I would have to see it over an extended period.
Yeah.
I've seen him have good months before, scorching months before even. And so unless I saw it for like an entire season or heck, even an entire like 3-month stretch, then I'd be like, okay, yeah, there seems like it seems like something's happening here.
Right. Yeah. I think for me, the Pascal Scottie thing is kind of independent of OG, truthfully, and I don't think the answer is trade Pascal to make it Scotty's team, and everyone else will fill in and fill in the gaps. OG will fill in the gaps because, look, I love OG. He's averaging 1.9 assists a game this season. He is not a playmaker. He's a play finisher, and that is a perfectly fine player to have when you consider all he does, how efficient he is, and of course the defense he brings to the table. But you're talking about a team that struggles on offense as it is. You're just going to pluck out Pascal Siakam's shot creation, and I don't know who they're trading him for. My thinking here is probably you're trading him for like multiple pieces is like the move that happens in the offseason if you're going to do it, which is why I don't think it's actually going to happen. It's why I think it's a little premature for a Pascal deal. But either way, like if you take Pascal's playmaking out of here, oh boy, things get even more grim. Like Scotty's not ready to be a full-time on the ball guy all the time. Fred VanVleet can't be your number one ball handler. Say what you will about Pascal. He's had a bit of a rough go of late, but he is easily the best shot creator on this team, not just for himself, but for others. And move on from him lightly is what I would say. I don't think OG just walks in to fill the Pascal void offensively. He just doesn't have the playmaking repertoire or anything resembling what Pascal does with the way he can create for others. So that's kind of my read on that. That said, OG rocks. Very happy with OG, what he's done of late. And he is a really, really nice player to have, regardless of who the sort of the play drivers are going to be on this team. Let's get to the bad quickly, shall we? What you got for your bad?
I think just these stretches again where it's like a constant reminder of like, oh, don't get too excited about this team.
Sure. The third quarter against Washington in particular?
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
That's my bad.
So, I think that's when the Jakob Poeltl trade was made. It was like, okay, let's see what this looks like over the final stretch. Let's see if this is all that's been needed to fix the team. And, while the starting lineup has been very good, I think that sort of stench still remains. And, Febreze only lasts so long. And I think
Jakob Poeltl, the human Febreze bottle. Is this what you're calling him? Wow.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty harsh critique.
And so I just think that this team has been frustrating from that standpoint. I think they're disjointed. I think even now in the press conferences, maybe they feel more at liberty to say things or passive aggressively suggest things because they know they're near the end. I thought Pascal's comments, I literally just asked him about Coloco's defensive communication, and then he's like, yeah, we got a bunch of guys that kind of just do their own thing.
Yeah,
he didn't need to say that, but he did.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think Fred gets asked a question about 4-year guys not getting valued correctly in the draft, and he's kind of like, yeah, people love potential. And it's like, oh, okay. So
who do you think that's at, directed towards?
I don't know, who's the one guy with the potential labeled all over. So I do think
Oh,
there's tension in the locker room. I do think there's frustrations, and I think part of like the disjointed basketball, the lack of connected basketball. Like you think of the Raptors over the years, you think of a team that the whole is bigger than the sum of its parts, and this season has been far removed from that. And so just continuing to see those stretches, it's clear that that is something that needs to be seriously addressed in the offseason.
Yeah, man, I miss when the Raptors were the team that annoyed everybody because they played so goddamn hard. And that doesn't, like, they were getting out tried by the Washington Wizards yesterday. And look, the Wizards, I think, like, credit to them, they've actually been kind of a frisky team all year, even though I think they're bad. They've tried quite hard, and that's probably lifted them to a higher station than they really deserve to be on talent. But yeah, it was notable in that third quarter. And like, look, also there's human nature. You're up pretty big against a bad team. I understand maybe letting the foot off the gas a little, but like to go down 26-9 to start that quarter, not amazing. Not what you want when things matter. And we're talking about razor thin margins and the advantage of moving up to eighth versus not, all of that. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they don't care about the play-in. I don't know, but. Yeah, something feels a little fishy. Something feels a little off. I think we're going to talk about it. I mean, the possibility of a coaching change, I think, looms large after the season is over, just as like a change of the vibes and the mix. We'll get into all of that as we go forward here. But yeah, that third quarter against Washington, like it was right there for them to have easy stroll to victory against the Pistons and an easy stroll to victory against the Wizards, and we come out of here feeling, hey, they took care of business wonderfully. But then that third quarter kind of, sours the whole mood. It stinks. Let's get to the quickly, shall we? I guess my is, what do you think they're going to do with Jeff Dowtin? I also don't know what to think about Jeff Dowtin because he looks great whenever he's in there, but is he great by comparison because the rest of the backup guards stink and he's just like a different kind of bad, just a slightly better version of it? He had a nice game Friday. He had a big 3 yesterday. I think he probably is at least decent. I think he's better than Malachi Flynn, for example. Again, damning with faint praise, but he's got 3-4 days left on his 2-way deal. Do you expect they will make him playoff eligible by making him a full-time player? And will that come at the expense of a Joe Wieskamp or something like that? What's your sort of read on the Dowtin situation to close things out here?
Yeah, I like Dowtin. I think he's been pretty good, but as you say, it's like, what is it relative to? And so even when you evaluate, like,
I look pretty good when I go to the YMCA and play against teens. Like, just stronger than them. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, like even when you evaluate like Fred's plus minus, right? It's like how much of this is because his value above the replacement is just so insane. And so I think with Dowtin, he's been good. I think there's quite a ways he has to go offensively, just in terms of like take your shot, there was that 3 he hit last night, and it was like those opportunities come to him more often than not, and more often than not he kind of just defers, right? You can even see sometimes there were fast break opportunities where it's like instead of just like running the lane, he's kind of in between because he's like just expecting whoever his teammate is on the break to just take it all the way. And then, it's like, oh, he catches it in an in-between space and now he's just like dribbling it back out. And so I think little things like that, he could get sharper on offensively. Defensively, I really don't have many complaints.
He's good. Yeah.
As a rookie, like he'll learn like fouling and all that stuff better. But I think, he understands the game at a high level, and I think defensively he is very, very good.
Yeah, for sure. Just by the way, our pal Blake Murphy, he checked with the league, confirmed that he's not eligible to play Dowtin. Not Blake. Blake can play anytime he wants, but Jeff Dowtin's not eligible for the play-in games as a 2-way, so he'd have to be converted before then. And as Blake notes, the 3 guys with no guaranteed money for next year that could potentially get waived, Delano Banton, Will Barton, and Joe Wieskamp. Also, we mentioned Thad as a potential possibility. They could eat $1 million for next year. But that is the situation as it stands right now. I feel like he's more useful than Joe Wieskamp. Just put him on the team instead of Joe Wieskamp. I think I'm fine with that. But maybe they have bigger ambitions for Wieskamp, a guy who will be one of those shooters who makes the whole thing work, makes Scotty and Pascal sing as a bench combination and all of that. We are going to wrap it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back again tomorrow. Esberaheni of the SDPN is going to jump on. We're going to take a look at the back end of the Raptors roster. How can the Raptors go about filling in a better back end of the roster? We'll talk about all of that tomorrow as we get ready for Raptors Heat on Tuesday. Big V, anything you got to promote here at the end of this very overlong episode in which I feel like we got a lot of stuff out?
Yeah, I think you are right. Yeah, just usual stuff. Follow me on Twitter at Vivek Jacob and check out Raptors.com.
Hell yeah, go do it. You can find me over on Twitter at Woodley Sean. Don't follow me on Twitter. Don't use Twitter. What are we doing here? Instagram, though. Locked On Raptors on Instagram. Follow over there. That's very cool. Support the channel. I think I'm unlocked in 2 days, so I'll be able to post stuff from there again because Meta is just as bad as all the other companies. Don't listen to me, Zuckerberg, please. Please don't block me forever. Also, YouTube, please go subscribe. Do the good thing. Leave comments, leave ratings, leave reviews, all that good stuff. It's always appreciated. And we will talk to you again tomorrow with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging, everyone. Bye-bye.